Debates around the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic tend to revolve around the struggles of the corporate organizations. Agricultural companies, especially small ventures, have also been severely affected. An online Emerging Farmers Summit revealed that despite overall favourable agriculture and weather conditions, including a good rainfall, 87% of small farmers in South Africa have not managed to recover from last year's hard lockdown. Let's discuss now further. Etienne Van Wyk joins us via Zoom. Etienne, welcome to the program. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. Talk to us more about the impact of I think, a hard lockdown. Earlier we were speaking to some from the tourism sector. They still have not recovered from last year. The farming industry as well, you're still struggling.
I think, yeah, Thabiso, I think, what you've said is absolutely true. We started a survey when the lockdown started last year. We ran it from July 2020 and it's continued to date. When we did our first set of results around September 2020, we had a situation that 20% of large businesses as well as 20% of SMMEs were operating under business as usual. Both of them had suffered an equal demise in their business. Subsequent to that, their fortunes have, however, differed dramatically. 44% of large corporates are operating on a business as usual basis, while only 17% of SMMEs, are still operating at the level that they were before the lockdown. In agriculture, that's been worse, with only 13% of the SMMEs returning to business as usual levels, while the large corporates were operating at 63% had returned to their business as usual levels prior to the COVID lockdowns. So the difference in the fortunes of the large businesses and the SMME sector has been vast.
I mean, a short while ago, we ran a story about the water warriors who are taking things like food, lucerne, to farmers who've been struggling in the Karoo. Where does even one start? I mean, farming is so pivotal to South Africa's, food safety, not even as in general. And if you are struggling when you don't have bees to sell, when you don't have, feed for your animals, how bad has it been?
Oh, it has been terrible for the small businesses. And I want to reiterate what you said in terms of the crucial importance of agriculture for a country, not the least of which is food security. Obviously, there needs to be sufficient income levels to afford the food, but the situation gets dramatically worse when you're dependent on importing of your agricultural produce. Now, there has been some remarkable efforts during this period, people that have taken the initiative, specifically, large corporates that had partnered with micro farmers in order to operate as a unit and in the process give those small farmers access to the markets and access to the supply chains, which is what really crippled the small farmers. If you want to prevent this going forward in the future, and if you want to recover from what has happened, you've got to understand why the small operators were so severely damaged. And it is about their access to markets. You can just imagine, if you're dependent on selling your wares to a school, a local non-profit, to hawkers, there might be spaza shops and other micro retailers that might have needed to close during the lockdowns, and you weren't able to sell to Pick n Pay or Woolworths, you were devastated. Now, what we understand as Beyond COVID is we've got to address the cause for the damage in order to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Where do we start? I know it's a tricky question. How do you even start?
I think, from our perspective, from, Beyond COVID, which is a non-profit specifically dealing with this issue, where we started is we got all of the stakeholders that need to come together and unite around this cause of reviving the SMME sector. We get them together and we have the discussion with them so they all understand what went wrong. And by this, we mean we need to speak to government, the large corporates that were able to sustain themselves and even have record performance in some instances. We need to speak to the traditional leaders, the community leaders that, have a long-term vested interest in their community and is desperately trying to make a difference. And they're also the landowners, which is a critically important thing. then deal with the emerging farmers, and then obviously, get the commercial funding institutions and also the development funding institutions, get them all together, get them on the same page in terms of what caused the catastrophe, and then get them all to commit about a road going forward. It is our hope that we can see the same energy and focus that went into combating COVID and now rolling out the vaccines. We would love to see that same unity and focus towards reviving of our SMMEs in general and our small and micro farmers in particular.
I was just about to go there because, I always say to my kids, no disaster goes, you should not let it go to waste. Always try and learn from whether it's a mistake or learn from a hardship. We're going to pick up some sort of lessons from what you've gone through so that in the future, if anything like this hits again, we've adapted, so to speak.
Absolutely. And Thabiso, I have to say, we don't always need to reinvent the wheel. Every time there is an economic shock or there is a big setback, there are always people that think ahead, that innovate, and that get successful results. There is a number of communities that, as I indicated, worked with large corporates, agricultural corporates, that not only weathered the storm, they thrived. So instead of us going down all kinds of avenues that might be speculative, we firmly believe is let's understand who did well during this crisis and let's learn from them. Let's not try to reinvent the wheel. Let's see who the winners were in this process, what they saw coming, how they dealt with it, and let us all then learn from it, focus our energy, and make sure that next time there's a big economic shock coming through, we are a lot more resilient than what we were last year.
How does one get hold of Beyond COVID and say, Etienne, I'm picking my hand up, I'm raising my hand, I'd like to get involved, or I'd like some assistance from you?
Well, I think the easiest would be to go to beyondcovid.co.za, our website. There they can get more information about what we do, what our approach is, what some of the programs were that has had such sterling results, and also to sign up to this entire cause. And we like to think of it as a grassroots movement. It's not an exclusive exercise in any way. We want all the banks, all the corporates, all the emerging farmers to come on board, and they will get in touch with us through our website, and then we will engage with them and, get them involved in the right place, in this initiative, in this cause, in this grassroots business movement.
Meneer Van Wyk, Etienne Van Wyk, Beyond COVID's co-founder, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Interesting conversation. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.